So this is a paper that I wrote about a year ago. I recently finished it using LaTeX. So the date is right now, but the main file is still in my drive, still in my Google Drive, I mean. So these are some blah blah blahs that I never wanted to write. They are just to maintain the criteria, okay, the regulations, and I set some rules so that the physicists don't say the laws are going against each other. So I have stated that if two objects are neutral and their properties are similar to each other, every property they hold are similar to each other. But this is gonna work even with charged objects, and even if the properties aren't similar. Some of the theories represented below are definitely gonna work with every single thing. They're continuously interacting right now with every single thing. So whatever. So if their properties are pretty similar to each other, then their forces of gravity and magnetism will be similar. You can see many research papers or previous research done in electrogravitomagnetism or something like that. There are many explanations out there with electromagnetic whatever, electrogravitomagnetism, or whatever they say. Okay, so I'm not gonna talk about that. So if these two forces are equal, then what happens basically, I just have to prove them they're not equal. So I put y in here. This y, I can calculate it, it's like they have to do a ton of experiments, reach sigma 5 level, and then there will be a value of y, or there will be an additional something here. That will be the value of y. There is going to be some x and y's that are needed to be calculated from the real-time measurements. It just simply can be done by a single-handed person. It's not the job of theoretical physicists. The experiments are going to do it for them. Okay, the theoreticals are going to put it later, but whatever. So in order to remove the equal sign and add the proportional sign, because I only need their properties, I don't need their precise measurement, so I kept it y, as simple as possible. Then I tried to show how mass can be created using the both. How mass can come to life. Okay, then I shifted a bit. I went to magnetic moment of particles, and I showed that magnetic moments also can be calculated. Then I came back to force of the total system can be measured. Okay, then I got into a thing that physicists aren't gonna agree, because they're gonna do every single thing using the relativistic equations that Einstein has created a long time ago. And now but I chose it because it's proportional, and there are something in here, okay, that's going to be measured, that's needed to be measured, precise measurement. So we know force of magnetism is like this, but what if we replace the velocity here with it? We get a beautiful thing where is time and mass and force of gravity exist with force of magnetism. So what it basically means that now we can go for mass and time, and the beautiful part of it is the theta, the sine theta. This is what everyone likes to see in our equation. Okay, so now we should pay attention here, because there is a mass. How increasing mass can decrease the force of magnetism, and how force of gravity can influence force of magnetism. It's all due to the motion, the object. More feels attraction towards an object next to it, so the object will move to that object, and from moving there they will create a magnetic field. Even neutral objects like neutrons have magnetic fields, so they're gonna interact with magnetic field for the velocity, and that's how they're gonna end up causing a magnetic change in the magnetic field. All right, so now I'm gonna end the whole story in one line, and we're gonna start again. Let me tell you the thing that I really wanted to write in my paper. So it's what I was thinking. First I was thinking an electron falling into a black hole. Okay, but then I thought everything towards that electron, but later I thought that some physicists will come and say that electrons have no mass. Some will say no, they have rest mass. They will say no, the electron is moving, so how could they have rest mass? So I just deleted that thought and I started thinking, and I changed it with a proton falling into a black hole. And all this appeared due to that proton holding the amount of charge, like it is mentioned there about the charge particle. Read it later, So the proton has a higher mass and it moves fast as well, so it's evolving. It's interacting with the magnetic field due to gravitation, and there is something happening here. Another thing, that how can increasing mass will decrease force of magnetism? We have to think it in a closed system, like an interaction between two systems, or in one system two objects are interacting between each other. Then this is going to happen, this main thing. What's basically going to happen, like inside an atom, if we start increasing mass, the mass inside the cores, then the electrons will have less area to move. So they are going to move in less area and they will be interacting with the less amount of magnetic fields. So that's the thing here to understand. Later things are gonna change, because I spent not about 3 days thinking that I wrote it totally wrong from what I wrote next to it. So there are some basic things. Now it comes up that the force of magnetism will change the density of charge of the particle. So there is something new here. Force of gravity, it's not new, it's we all know it, and this is a new thing, that force of gravitation will change with concentration of gravitational field. It happens everywhere. If an object moves, like there is a new law. I didn't wrote the law directly, but I stated it. The new law is like, if an object moves, it concentrates the gravity. Like a moving object, the faster it moves, the more it's gonna concentrate the fields near it. Like it's gonna go through more amount of force fields in a less amount of time. So the force fields are being concentrated to it as more speed as it gets into. But there is a fact that this term, concentration of field, hasn't been used in physics yet. Physicists don't think it that way. They don't think it that way yet. So I don't know how much approval I'm gonna get. Like, they don't know it, that they don't know this fundamental fact that an object will be moving through fields, and if they move faster, then they will interact with more field in less amount of time. That's the thing here. Now we all know what temperature can affect gravity, but there weren't much papers related to it. I didn't got much. But the increasing temperature, like the black hole has a very lower temperature, while a neutron star has a very higher temperature. Oh, the second thing that the more temperature increased, like in a neutron, its magnetic field is a reason for the electrons in motion, and it is in motion itself, and both of those two things are happening only because of temperature. So if we increase the temperature, then the magnetic field is going to increase. And I wrote some things here that I don't really want to explain. These things, nothing, really nothing. Okay, so I have stated it in the law that I was mentioning before. I've stated in here, but I don't wrote the law clearly because they have to write it down for me. Spiral spin, that's a new thing. It's not in physics yet. Also, it's not physics. Like, they think that two objects attract each other from their center, but no, that's really not happens. In quantum level, gravity occurs in each one of the atoms, the particles inside the object. So there are two sides. I've divided into left and right and showed that what's basically happening due to the gravitational waves I mentioned here, but it's a bit wrong in that sense. Actually, it would be gravitational fields because they are actually acting at the moment. So there will be gravitational field lines everywhere there. You see gravitational waves, you can change it with gravitational field lines if you want. If you think it's creating a mess, then just change it with it. Because I was having problem with, so I changed done in here. Now autogenous gravitation. It's like that a moving object. The more the object moves, I stated it before. Spiral spin. The spiral spin is related to the sine theta I mentioned earlier. Every they will be changing angles, and they will be creating a spiral motion in the what we say space. So a small object is going to create a spiral motion due to a huge object if being pulled because of the gravitational attraction, or what I mentioned earlier, that every atom in that object is going to be attracted. It's written here, just read it later, later in the link that I'll provide with this paper. Okay, autogenous gravitation. These two things are new, as I mentioned, so you can search it out in the internet, or you can get any research related. I didn't got any. So what autogenous gravitation is doing is, when an object moves, it concentrates more gravitational field, like I said before. So it will go through more amount of gravitational fields, and it will be having more amount of gravity. It itself is going to have more amount of gravity in it. Its gravity is going to skyrocket with its acceleration or speed, or whatever you think of it. Okay, so there is something I said here. It's about dimensions. It's all about dimensions, that it states how we measure things in dimensions, but we don't go for the fourth dimension because we can test it. But the force is different in fourth dimension. It interacts differently in fourth dimension, and a force from fourth dimension can affect the force in the third dimension as well. Like, if you put a force in three dimension, the two dimension also gets a part of the force. So if it interacts, the fourth dimension, if it interact with third dimensional force, they're gonna create a phenomenon. I don't want later that it to be unexplained. So I have said something that energy in different state, like how energy reacts throughout the process, is written here. Showed some application, like they're researching photons about, and electrons, and several different things, like light bands, several different things where it should be searched for. And now this is a very sensitive situation where we see the process of changing field energy. So there is a main theme here that I was sticking here for a long time, that look at the properties of these metals. You'll read it later, that how temperature affects it. So in quantum level, there are two main factors: volume and temperature, nothing else. So we say quantum level is weird, but it's not weird at all. The volume and temperature does it all. If the system is closed, then there will be one effect. If the system has two objects, things are appearing between two objects, all the properties, then there will be another effect. I have mentioned it here, but I'm gonna prove it in the next part. Okay, now here it is, the proof. Cosmological events in real time. Oh, there is another thing, that how energy can change, like magnets take energy, where the energy is coming from, and how the electron is being producing that much of light, why the magnet is not burning up, whatever. And there is, I'm stated the same dimensional problem that I mentioned. It's still a problem to me. This is my limitation. What I can see, what I can do, I don't know about how in throughout the dimension they're gonna work. So that could be the dimensional equation. That could, because there are so many unknown factors here I've written. Whatever, there could be so much here, so much, like whole set of equations. I don't know throughout the dimension. I don't know them. I don't want to know them as well. Cosmical evidence in the real universe. Okay, now here the magic happens. So when the universe was hot, particles were forming. The particles which generate more amount of magnetic field, and we see the similar things in neutrinos. Like the more temperature, the more magnetic field it's producing, the more it's spinning. So when the universe was hot at the very beginning, when it was getting born, the magnetic field was greater than back then. The magnetic field was greater. Because of the magnetic field was greater, the quarks formed. Everything is written here. You can read it out loud. Okay, but what happened when the universe started cooling down? Then the solar system was being created, and we see the gravitational forces being changed. So it also related to this factor here, the temperature and the density factor. Okay, so it is a proof that the theory works. Like if we turn the temperature zero, the force of gravity turns into infinite amount of gravity in zero temperature. I think Kelvin also tried something like this. He tried this with the gaseous elements, and what he basically got that those gaseous elements didn't have any properties in zero temperature, only because the gravity was intense. I think he was right. He was looking for this, never got this, because he didn't had all these previous researches that I had on my hand. Alright, whatever, I don't know what he was thinking back then. Okay, so and there I stated that the Big Bang happened only because of change in temperature. Like it proves that the universe was a singularity. The whole equation, the theories prove that it is not against Big Bang. It's showing proof that Big Bang really happened. So it proves that that time amount of energy either get into the system, the closed system, or an amount of energy changed inside the closed system. The change of energy caused Big Bang, and it happened in a small amount of time, very tiny amount of time. A great amount of temperature or energy was being changed. Due to that change, the explosion happened. And it also states one more thing, that change in temperature or energy, whatever, it came inside it or it was inside, it was changed inside, from inside. Kinetic and potential energy I'm mainly talking about. It created the symmetry between dark matter and antimatter. It created the symmetry. The whole concept shows the proof. Okay, I've shown some possibilities. I don't know if these are real or not. don't really know. Okay, how many citations? I have 33 citations. Most of them are based on some internet resources. Okay, gravity is the strongest. I've written because weak and strong nuclear force, how they measure it. They measure it based on the volume the force is being applied. But gravitational force is something that can be infinite, but not weak and strong. Force they can't be infinite, but gravity is a force that can be infinite, that changes with like speed and concentration. Okay, so here this not only me but everyone knows or thinks that this thing is never going to happen, whatever. So that's all that it was. What am I gonna say? Just read the paper and think whatever you want. I don't want to say anything anymore because I took a Newtonian approach. Why a Newtonian approach? Because Einstein's approach was a geometric shape. It's a precise measurement due to the geometric shape that was made back then. Okay, so if you start from Einstein's equation, you will end up getting back to that geometric shape again. But what Newton did, he mentioned the true fact, the true thing that which was happening, like the person who first burned a wood knew that mass can be turned into energy and the velocity of the flame is increasing. The volume, velocity, density of the flame is increasing. The more mass being added. Okay, so that was there. The geometric shape was there. It's not like I hate geometry, I love geometry as much as Einstein maybe did, but the fact is that I need the true cause why it's happening. Einstein didn't mention why it's happening. He showed us a geometric shape that we can measure precisely. That's all it is. So that's it. Read it, review it, tell me your comments. I will send a link. The book will be in a blue PDF, blue link. Just click on it. Alright.